We're always taught that the big decisions, the ones that really matter, are made on spreadsheets, that logic is king. But what if that's the greatest strategic illusion in business? Today, we're not just looking at another marketing tactic. We're decoding a fundamental blueprint of the human mind, one that flips that entire idea on its head and reveals the profound truth about how we actually make choices.
And this right here, this is the great strategic illusion. We see the spreadsheets, we see the feature comparisons, the endless requests for data, and we assume, aha, that's where the decision is happening. We've been trained to lead with logic, to build our case on a solid foundation of features and benefits. But neuroscience tells us something completely different. It tells us that emotion doesn't just influence a decision, it creates the very framework for it. So today, we're going to dismantle this illusion and show you what really drives the choices that matter.
All right, here's our roadmap. First, we'll expose the great strategic illusion and dig into why our obsession with logic so often backfires. Then, we'll introduce the solution, a powerful sequence called the ELE decision pattern. From there, we'll dive deep into the neuroscience of the buyer's brain to understand why this thing is so effective. And finally, we'll turn all that theory into a practical, actionable framework for mastery, which leads us to the ultimate goal, securing that final emotional commitment.
Okay, let's start with the big mistake, the foundational error. When we see a customer meticulously building a spreadsheet, comparing our product to 3 competitors, we think we're watching the decision being made in real time. But we're not. What we're actually watching is the alibi for the decision being built. We are mistaking the evidence of justification for the origin of intent. And that one simple critical mistake is where most strategies begin to fail before they've even really started. This idea, it just flips conventional wisdom on its head. The decision to move forward, to pick one path, one solution, it starts in the fast, intuitive, emotional part of our brain. All the logic, the data, the ROI calculations, that stuff comes after. Its job isn't to make the choice, but to defend the choice that on some gut level has already been made. Just think of it this way. Logic is the defense attorney for a verdict the heart has already delivered.
So if leading with logic is the problem, then what's the solution? Well, it's a strategic sequence that actually respects how the brain works. It's called the ELE pattern, emotion followed by logic, followed by emotion again. And this isn't just some clever communication tactic. It's about aligning your entire message with the mind's natural and frankly unavoidable flow for making decisions.
Let's break this down. The pattern unfolds in 3 very distinct stages. It all starts with the first emotion, E1, which acts as the hook. This is where you connect with a deep-seated pain point or a really powerful aspiration. Only then, once that motivation is locked in, do you bring in the logic. This is the justification stage, where you provide the cold, hard, verifiable proof. But here's the kicker. The decision is ultimately sealed with the second, different emotion, E2, the emotional payoff of confidence, security, and just profound relief. This sequence is a true blueprint for influence.
So how does this actually work in practice, starting with that all-important first step, E1? Well, a journey can't begin with a feature list or a data sheet, because our brains are hardwired to conserve energy. To earn that cognitive effort to get someone to actually do the hard work of analysis, you have to interrupt them first. And the only tool powerful enough to do that is a visceral feeling, that sharp, nagging pain of a current problem or that intense magnetic pull towards a better future. That's what creates the momentum.
So once they're emotionally hooked, a switch just flips. The customer's brain moves from feeling to analyzing. They are now actively looking for a rational defense for the emotional gut feeling they already have. They need to find verifiable proof that this feeling is justified, that this path is safe, that it's the smart move. This means your content here has to be ruthlessly rational. We're talking ROI calculators, objective third-party case studies, side-by-side comparison charts. You are literally arming them with a logical ammunition they need to defeat their own skepticism and justify this thing to their boss, their team, and themselves.
And this right here, this is the crucial point. Even after all that logic, the final yes is not a logical conclusion. The facts and figures don't seal the deal by themselves. The purchase is sealed by a final emotional state. That powerful feeling of confidence that this is absolutely the right choice. The immense relief that a nagging problem is finally solved. This is the emotional payoff that the logical data promised. It's the feeling that turns simple consideration into a rock-solid commitment. Now, this pattern isn't just some clever idea I cooked up. Its effectiveness is deeply rooted in decades of behavioral science. To really master the ELE sequence, we need to get why it works so well. We've got to look at the fundamental principles of how our brains are wired to process information and make choices.
So let's decode the psychology at play.
I mean, this is the key question, isn't it? Why does sequencing communication in this exact way, emotion, then logic, then emotion again, have such a massive impact? Well, the answer lies in how perfectly the pattern works with the two main operating systems of the human mind.
This slide shows the brilliant model from Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman. Basically, our brain has two operating systems. System 1 is our fast, intuitive, emotional pilot. It makes snap judgments, it runs on gut feelings, and it's almost effortless. System 2, on the other hand, is our slow, analytical, logical co-pilot. It takes real, conscious effort to get it going. The ELE pattern is so powerful because it speaks to both systems in the order they prefer. E1 grabs the attention of the fast, dominant System 1. The logic phase then gives the hard data to the effortful System 2 to analyze. And then, E2 provides that final intuitive gut check from System 1, which gives the ultimate all-clear based on System 2's hard work. The pattern also taps into some really powerful cognitive biases, like loss aversion. We are psychologically wired to feel the pain of losing something about twice as powerfully as we feel the pleasure of gaining that same thing. That first emotional hook, E1, often uses this directly. So, for example, instead of saying, "Our software will help you gain 10% efficiency," you frame it as, "Your current process is losing you $10,000 a month." See the difference? By highlighting the ongoing pain and the real loss of just staying put, you create a much stronger, more urgent reason to act.
So, what's that logic phase really doing for the buyer on a psychological level? Well, it's helping them avoid buyer's remorse. We have this deep instinctual need for our actions and beliefs to feel consistent. The logical proof lets the buyer align their rational mind with their initial emotional gut feeling. It silences that inner voice of doubt, that uncomfortable mental friction we call cognitive dissonance, by giving them undeniable evidence that their gut feeling was, in fact, the smart choice all along.
Okay, so understanding the theory is one thing, but actually applying it is where the real value is. So let's shift from the why to the how. How can you take this cognitive blueprint and translate it into a repeatable, effective business practice? It really comes down to a clear, actionable framework.
Mastering this approach really comes down to 3 disciplined steps. First, you have to map every single stage of your customer journey to a dominant emotional or logical state. Second, you need to deliberately enforce the contrast between the initial emotional problem, E1, and the final emotional solution, E2. And third, you have to be absolutely ruthless in auditing all of your logical content to make sure it's verifiable and totally unassailable.
This table right here maps the theory directly onto a practical marketing funnel. Your top-of-funnel content, your ads, your social media, your first outreach, it all has to align with E1. Its only job is to connect with that emotional state of pain or aspiration. Then the middle of funnel, where people are evaluating their options, that has to deliver the logic. This is where your white papers, case studies, and demos live, all designed to tackle skepticism and the need for justification. And finally, the bottom of funnel, right before the decision, that has to align with E2, delivering that powerful feeling of confidence and relief. Every single piece of content has to serve the specific cognitive state of its stage.
Let's just focus on that middle, logical phase for a second, because this is where a lot of strategies just fall apart. Your own marketing claims are not enough. The logic you provide can't just be your own marketing spin. It has to be an unassailable, rational defense, built on third-party proof, hard data from credible sources, and metrics anyone can verify. This is the bridge of trust between that initial emotional hook and the final emotional commitment, and without it, the whole structure just collapses under the weight of skepticism.
So, we've covered the illusion, the 3-stage pattern, the neuroscience that powers it, and the framework to put it into practice. Now let's bring it all together into the single most powerful insight that this entire system is built on. This is the core takeaway if you want to achieve lasting influence.
And here it is, the essential insight. The customer's mind has to be won over twice. Once to spark the journey, and a second time to seal the commitment. And both of those critical, decisive moments are emotional. Logic is the essential, rational bridge that connects them, but it is always in service of an emotional desire. It doesn't create it. By sequencing your message to provide emotional urgency first, logical justification second, and emotional relief last, you align your entire strategy perfectly with how the human brain is naturally wired to decide. Ultimately, the most effective strategy isn't about pushing people through a funnel. It's about pulling them toward real value. And it does this because it understands the fundamental sequence of the human heart and the human mind. It recognizes that to truly connect, to truly convince, it must first speak to the emotional
and only then to the rational mind.